Thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to dive into the conversation in a moment. First, I wanted to remind you that the show notes and links mentioned on this podcast are on my website at lizasivekmarketing.com. That's Liza with a Z and Civic with an S. So, okay, let's get started. So, hello, marketing magicians. Thank you for joining me today. This is Liza Sivek of LizaSivekMarketing.com, and this is the Marketing Myths and Magic podcast. I have with me today a very good friend of mine, my guest, Deborah Agrafojo. She is a mergers and acquisition advisor who will talk about marketing a business for acquisition or capital raise today, and we'll talk a little bit about marketing your business right from the beginning. She specializes in food and beverage and consumer packaged goods and also breweries, but she will handle all kinds of deals. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different kinds of companies and industries. She has a background where she has been a middle school teacher, so she knows how to negotiate. And she also has owned an allergy-free bakery. And I joked with her that I like to talk about hobbies that my guests have, but because she has, children of her own, her hobby right now is a child athlete chauffeur, which I remember being as well. So very busy woman, and I thank you for having time to talk to us today. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. It's good to talk to everyone.
So mergers and acquisition doesn't sound like an obvious marketing aspect, but it is. And because I have worked with the company you work for, which is Touchstone Advisors in the Hartford, Connecticut area, I have a little background in what you do and understand the marketing aspect of exit strategy, wanting to retire or sell your business to start another one. With COVID, a lot of people that I personally know were laid off close to retirement age and have decided to start their own company and kind of ride out through there, but they're planning on selling, within 10 years or less. So that's a whole new aspect of things. And then we have people who are getting to retirement age just because that's where they are. Big baby boomer population of business owners. And of course, we have a lot of people now who are coming out of college or coming out of grad school and starting a business, starting a startup in all kinds of industries, breweries, software, whatever it is, and planning on selling it off and starting something new because they're entrepreneurs and they want to keep doing something new. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. So if you've just started a business and you don't plan to sell or retire for several years, when would someone start building in their exit strategy so their business can be marketed well when it's time to be acquired or to sell?
Honestly, you should be thinking about what your exit strategy is from the moment you form the business. I know we can't predict the future. We'd all love a crystal ball. It would be much easier. But you should think about it when you set up your company, particularly now when we're looking at a time where capital gains taxes are potentially going to be increased and exiting a business that will influence how much you exit with. So if you start your business as a C Corp, knowing that you're going to flip it, then you can start building that small business stock advantage, which will protect you tax-wise. So talking to someone before you even fill out your articles of incorporation papers to get some guidelines on how to format the business so that it is ready to sell is important. Thinking about what expenses naturally fit into the business and what personal expenses that you're going to put into the business P&L are important because that's all things that you're going to disclose when you market the business. Any buyer is going to want to look at 5 years of financials. So if you know you're going to sell in the next 5 years, you most definitely should start talking to your accountant, an M&A advisor, and look at how things are structured because you have the time to either correct or reformat any things that you may have done that work just fine when it's your business and you can write yourself a check for the golf course fees versus whether you want to collect a multiple of those golf course fees when you sell the business. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into formulating the business plan and how easy it is to exit. You want to have your exec team in place, and you would prefer that they stay because you'll get more for your company that way. You want to make sure that you're paying yourself a salary, which sounds counterintuitive when you're starting a business. It's more like I can just pay all these expenses and I don't need to pay myself a salary because I'm covering my household expenses. Great, except when I go to package your financials for you, I'm going to have to explain all that. And it's an easier add back for a buyer to look at and see the size of your business. The companies that are successful at selling their business for the highest multiples are the ones that have planned for it.
So when you say add back, what does that mean for someone who hasn't done this before?
So when we look at your P&L, you put all of your costs on it, right? Every expense that your business has. Some of them are an expense that would be carried forward. So somebody buying your business is going to need computers operated. So they're going to pay for that. They are not going to need your golf club membership. They are not going to need your automobile. So those expenses get added back to the bottom line and count for profitability of your company. It's profits that if you had not put into those items that are personal expenses would be a profit on the bottom line of your business. Now, any accountant that is viewing this or listening to this is like, oh, yes, but putting the expenses in is the best way to avoid taxation. And they're right. That is absolutely how you should run the cash flow day to day. However, when it comes to sit down to me, and I want to get you every penny that you've worked your butt off for, all the years that you have worked your business, even if you just did a startup to flip, you're still looking at 5 to 10 years of grindstone hard work, and you should get a payout of a high multiple for that. So we work to find all those expenses, but there are some expenses that you and I know are personal and we can put down as personal and add back. That doesn't mean the buyer automatically agrees that those are add backs. So all of that comes into the fine points of the negotiation when we talk to our buyers.
And so that's what an M&A advisor would do, as beyond just using your own personal business accountant, is you can find those nuances of what buyers are looking for and acquirers are looking for.
Correct. So like we have, and we do, it all funnels into what is called an EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. And that's a lot of large words.
Yes, it is.
If you are not familiar with those types of expenses, and many business owners are not. So if you're sitting here going, oh my goodness, I should know that. No, you probably shouldn't. You will learn that if you come to sell your business. But it's not a standardized way of looking at things. It's the way the buyers view things, though. So your EBITDA gets applied to a multiple, and the EBITDA is basically all that profit that the company has made, whether you claimed it as tax deductible profit or not. It's all the bottom line profit of the company. And then the buyers go, oh, well, this particular industry has more value or less value, so I'm going to apply the typical multiple for an HVAC company, and that's 6 times EBITDA. So I'm going to take your total profitability and I'm going to multiply it by 6, and that's what I'm going to offer you.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think for business owners, that's going to make sense too. And one of the things I learned working with you and the others in this industry is that we are, as business owners, we are always thinking about taxation, like you said. And we're thinking, well, when we get there, when we're ready to retire, we'll worry about that. And we kind of think we know what our business is worth. And we may know we know what our business is worth. That doesn't necessarily mean we're correct. So what if I'm 25 years into my business and I'm ready to to sell and my kids don't want it and I'm ready to retire, go hit that golf course, go hit a little traveling, become a snowbird. What do I do now if I haven't considered that up until this point? Because a lot of people don't. I didn't know until I talked to you that that's something people have to worry about from the beginning. So now what do we do?
Well, so you have a period of time, and it depends on how fast and how soon you start talking to. It's just like anything else. The more prepared you are, the more time you give yourself to fix the problem. So M&A advisors specialize in coming in, going through your books, finding things that we can fix. We want to have at least 12 months of what we call clean books. So if we come in and we look at the way you've been doing your billing and we're like, okay, this is great, but if you had billed this other way, you could save yourself a ton of working capital money. And if we can do that in the time that we are preparing your business to market, because it's not, so people sometimes get the impression that this is something fast. Deals can take a good, clean, solid deal where the business comes to us ready is at least 18 months from start to close.
All right.
It That's just takes that time. And then even at 18 months, you're not done. You don't get to walk out the door. You sold the company, which included you. So therefore, as the outgoing owner, you are the person that has to help transition the new ownership in. So there will be, and the shortest time I've seen is 6 months. 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. They're going to want to employ you for that period of time. So if somebody comes to us ready to walk out the door, that's a little bit harder. At least 5 years before you walk out that door, you should be talking to somebody.
So don't plan on handing this over to you and say, okay, I want to be in my house in Florida in 3 weeks and just take care of this and let my management team do it. You really need to think about it if you want to do this right. And the way I see it is if I've built a business up for years, whether it's something I built a lot into for 10 years planning to sell for acquisition, or if I've made this my life's work in my family business, I want it to continue. I'm not just looking to get a cash payout and go, and whatever happens to my employees happen. I have invested time in this and I care about my staff. I'm not going to let that happen. And I may have family members still in that business who aren't going to run it. So it's not just here it is, that's it, and good luck with it. You're going to make sure that it's continued the way that they intended it to continue as well.
Correct. Now, something that you said there is interesting and makes a difference. If you have a management team that can run the company while you walk out the door, you're in a different position. So if that company is functioning completely and well without you in it, then we are in a different position to market your company. Maybe you can go down to Florida, but you can't just go down to Florida and turn off your phone. You're gonna
wait. No, that's the plan. That's my entire retirement plan.
Right. You're going to have to help me get all the information about your company or find me somebody in your company that is willing to work on this process. It's not an easy process. And many times owners get frustrated throughout the process. And there's a psychological element to this process because you have developed this business. You work every day. You see your employees every day. You build your personal relationships inside your business, and you're going to hand it to somebody for a check. And a lot of times we see business owners that are like, oh, I'll be fine with it. And right up to closing, they're like, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. So it really is a process. And the length of time of the process actually helps owners kind of step out, move back, let go of things, figure out who can take over which roles. Maybe they need 5 people to replace them. It's highly possible. People with entrepreneurial spirit are go-getters, hard workers, pick up their phone at 7 a.m., put it down at 10. Employees are not necessarily as hard of a worker. So getting the people
depends on the
in
investment
place.
in the business, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, because entrepreneurs, and I'm nowhere near retirement, but entrepreneurs, we like to stack our hats one on top of each other. And we like to have a
absolutely.
couple more off to the side.
Yeah.
And that's something that if I had to hand off everything I do in a day or a week to one person, it would have to be someone who is just as invested financially and emotionally in my business, because otherwise you would need several people to do it. Plus, it's a skill set. You know, if you're an entrepreneur and you've worked in a business all those years, you've picked up a lot of skills that you had to do on your own before you had a huge management team or a lot of employees. And all those skills cannot be covered by one person in most
Nope.
cases, right? So let's talk a little more about the marketing aspect of it. Now that we understand what it is. So, you know, I'm a potential client. I want to sell my business. I've had a couple competitors or private investors come up to me and say, we just want to write you a check and take you over. We know you're getting to retirement age, or we heard you're ready to sell. That's very tempting because it's easy, right? But it's not that transactional, and it's not
Right.
always the best way. And how do you know that what they're offering you is what your business is worth if it's not anywhere near the number you're thinking, especially? So what parts of my business are marketed to potential buyers? And you know, what parts are the marketing aspect of this once I go into the market to sell?
So there's a couple different points there. First, we have what we call unsolicited offers. People coming to you and saying, "I'll give you $1 million for your book of business, and you can step out tomorrow." You can almost guarantee your business is worth considerably more than that, because it is. Unsolicited offers tends to be the lowest offers you can receive. And a lot of times people go around making blanket offers. So they'll get a list of landscaping companies, and they will go and call every landscaping company and offer whatever money they have to invest, right? And that doesn't mean that business is worth that. If they don't have your financials, they don't even know what your business is worth. So they're basing their number off of what they think possibly your business is worth. And unless you have and you need a good transactional attorney. So part of what we do as M&A advisors is help you build a team that protects you in all elements of a sale. And the transactional attorney is important because they come in and they look at this offer and say, is it even a valid offer? Is it based on enough, or are you going to end up? They start looking at your financials and they intend to renegotiate. And that can happen a lot. When we market a business, we market everything. I mean, we're going to sweep underneath your kitchen sink. So
we're entrepreneurs.
Right.
We haven't been under our kitchen sink in a long time.
Exactly. But that's our job, is to find everything out that could be a boost to a buyer or a hindrance to a buyer. So my transaction that closed last, they had an agreement in place with a line of materials that they were the only one in that area of New England that could carry this very desirable type of electronic. And in their mind, they're like, oh, that's great. We order from them and we put that in. Our buyers said, that is amazing. We are so glad you found that. We're actually going to pay more for that. So something that the owner could not place a high value on does not mean that it's not something that the buyer will place a value on. So by cleaning out the kitchen sink and looking for the almost like a trash and treasure kind of scenario here, looking at everything, anything that could add value to your business.
And I think that speaks a lot to what's called the curse of knowledge, where you think all the stuff you've picked up over the years and you're an expert in seems so easy and secondhand nature to yourself that you think, well, this is no big deal to anybody else. And so you try to explain it, and then you're like, oh, not everybody knows this. And I think that same attitude could extend to, well, my business is valuable because we sell this much, X number of widgets every year. And you're not thinking about the things that set you apart from the competition, mm-hmm. even though you know it, you've just internalized it so much that it's second nature. And you think, well, everybody knows this. So that's probably why they're offering me this. So what it sounds like is that a mergers and acquisition advisor is a guide to marketing the correct areas of your business, making sure that you have all your ducks in a row and that they're quacking in the right direction, which is very important. Yes,
absolutely.
So you do a lot of food and beverage consumer packaged goods. And what does that mean, consumer packaged goods?
Anything that you take off the shelf and use.
Okay. So in the food and beverage area, you've told me about incubating products at bigger companies. Mm-hmm. So I've come up with this great new muffin recipe, and it's different than anybody else's. And I found a way to make it something that everybody wants, but I don't have the facilities or the money to take it further and to make it a national product. So what are some of the options for acquisition or an influx of cash for that with an M&A advisor?
Yeah, well, it depends on again, this is why I said start from the beginning, thinking about the end. It depends on what your end game is. Are you marketing the recipe, or are you looking to work the growth of the business around the recipe? If you're looking to work the growth of the business around the recipe, which is what I would say will get you the ultimate payout, then you're going to look for it's literally called an incubator. And a lot of large companies have these programs. It's an application. I can do it for you. I will charge you for it. You can probably do it yourself. I can advise you on it.
It takes a lot less time with someone who's done it before, like any paperwork.
It does.
Right.
It does. So you're going to create a presentation to the requirements. It's going to require video work. So there's some upfront investment in getting your applications ready for the incubators. They typically prefer to see some type of sales plan program. If you've got just a muffin recipe, then you should start having conversations with what are called co-packers. And they make your recipe and your products. And a lot of them actually offer support for starting new brands. So they may have a no investment to you policy until you have your first order, where they basically help front your expense of packaging, creating samples, getting sales orders. And that getting that piece done will put you ahead of the game for an incubator situation where you can say, oh, I'm in Fresh Market. Oh, I'm here. I've got, a small contract with this independent Highland Park Markets setup. So where I'm in 5 stores, but I can show you that consumers like my products. So you start with just a little bit, and then you get incubator funding or venture capital funding. Both of those are specific contacts so part of the value that an M&A advisor brings is we typically know where the money is. So that's a positive.
Good skill. Yes.
Yes. So there are specific investors that only do venture capital, and they may invest $10,000 in 100 companies. And maybe one of those hits, but it hits big, and that's their payout. So they evaluate small startups for a small initial investment, almost a Shark Tank type scenario.
I was actually going to say this sounds like Shark Tank without having to go on TV.
Exactly. But it's how businesses legitimately start. But you have to know when you're going into it, the growth potential of the company. So it's like when you watch one of the poor people go uninformed onto Shark Tank, and
they schedule them on purpose, but it teaches us all, right?
It is, and you just sit there and go, "Oh, honey," you have to know your market. You have to get that information. So if that's not something that you have readily available, you need somebody that's an expert in the area. You need an M&A advisor that specializes in your area.
And, I tell people all the time that, when they say, well, why do I need, a marketing person, for instance, because that's my experience. And I say, well, because you're an expert in, making coffee beans or roasting coffee beans, or you're expert in, selling and servicing cars. You're not an expert in marketing. Well, if you're not an expert in how to get acquired or how to become a product that is co-pack, has a co-packer, why would you try to do it on your own? Stick to what you know incredibly well and delegate the rest to someone that you can pay to do the guiding for you and help you do that. And then when you go in front of someone, you're not going to look like the uninformed person on Shark Tank that makes us all wince, those poor people. Because if you don't know what you don't know, that's what happens.
Right.
That's why you need experts. So, and I know that some of the things that you do is, smaller breweries get acquired by the larger makers. And there's so many small breweries now with the changes in the laws over the years that a lot of them are being started by people with a degree in brewing and business, specifically because they know when they get tired of making that particular brew, they're going to sell to Sam Adams or to somebody else and move on to make a new brewery with a new flavor profile, because that's what all they want to do. They don't want to take it national and they want to move on to something new. So that being such a huge part of that industry now, that all applies the same way. That's just like any other kind of startup, correct?
Yes. So we call that a roll-up. When a larger company comes through and acquires a whole lot of smaller companies. So right now there is a craft brewing roll-up out of California, and that's what they did. They went through the United States and they looked for the top-selling breweries, and they said, "We like you. We're going to buy all of you." And then they take over the piece that becomes expensive, the distribution, the logistics, the making sure that you get on the right shelves at the right locations, paying for the slotting fees. There's food and beverages full of slotting fees for product placement. The best place on the shelf, you pay for it. So that's a capital investment that you may not have as a small brewery. And so that's a positive. You can go that way. They are also your experts in distribution. And that's, if you're really good at making craft beer, that doesn't necessarily make you an expert in getting with the right distributors at the right price. Distributors see business owners as an easier target than a larger group. So you are not guaranteed the best price for distributing your product. And a lot of time you give up your valuable small margin to your distributor to get the placement on the shelf. Whereas if you're working together, it's also, there's several coalitions of breweries that have gone together and have a certain amount of pull that way. So if you have 10 brands, you can say, okay, we are offering you 10 brands at this rate versus one brand, please take me.
Yes. I think that it's easy as a business owner to be flattered by the interest from a big corporation in your product. And you may not realize that they're not coming to you just because you have an amazing product, but also because they see that if they can get to you before you get advice, they can get a bargain. And I am always telling people, don't discount yourself. Don't undersell yourself. What you do is valuable. Make sure that value is expressed financially if that's your goal, and you want to get some venture capital or get an investor. That person should really appreciate what you do, and you need a middleman. And a middleman is not just someone who comes in and brokers a deal and sits at the table and says, okay, you want this and they want this. As you've explained, there's so much more to it. And I think most people don't understand that, which is why I think this is a really valuable aspect to the podcast, because it's something that affects all of us at some point when our business is ready to sell. Hopefully we're going to sell, as opposed to, go out of business. So we want to do that right. Um, there's so much to unpack here, and I think we could actually do a whole nother podcast on some of this. So I think I'm going to have you back at some point. But is there any really great advice you'd like to leave us with, or the top thing to remember when you're considering what to do when you're going to sell?
Find an advisor that you like, that you trust, and that you want to work with for the next 5 years.
Yeah, they're going to be your partner. They're going to be your buddy. They're going to be all up in your office and in your financials. So you want to like them and you want to trust them. It's not a sleazy thing at all to have a consultant. And I think that TV makes it look like people just sweep in and offer you money, or sweep in and try to consult it. It's not like that at all. And I get a lot of that. This is a very professional, expert thing to have. And I know from talking to Deborah and other people at Touchstone Advisors and other companies that these are people that really believe in what they're doing and want to help you. And they get paid for their expertise, just like you should. But it's something that will help you get so much more out of the experience, both emotionally, as you said, which I don't think people consider how hard it will be, because they're thinking, I'm just ready to go. Mm-hmm. If they're ready to go, there might be just, the 1 foot in the sand in the beach. But there's a lot more to it that I don't think people really understand until they're there. So this has been really valuable information, and thank you. How can people get in touch with you if they want to talk more about this or talk to you about their business?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I have a cell phone, so you can call me at 936-689-2501. Or you can email me. And that's unfortunately, Agrafojo is a long name. So I'm hopeful that Liza will post it someplace.
Yes, it's I'm going to put it on the listening part, because the show notes will not show up on the other platforms, but my show notes and the synopsis will always be on my website, which is also hard to spell. So it's okay, Deborah. LizaSivekMarketing.com, under the Marketing Myths and Magic podcast tab. And Deborah is it's spelled with an AH at the end, and her last name is spelled Agrafojo.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I was doing that off the top of my head. I'm like, ooh, do I have to look at that? Agrafojo. So it's a J, not an H at the end. Agrafojo, J-O. So, I will have her on my show notes, and everything will be on my website for you when this goes up. So thank you so much. I think this has been really excellent overview of what this is and how to market your business for sale and how much goes into it ahead of time, just like any marketing plan. And I appreciate your sharing all that with us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Wow. Another fantastic conversation done. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget that all the links mentioned will be in the show notes at LizaSivekMarketing.com. And while you're there, if you're a business owner whose marketing is on life support, check out the Your Virtual Marketing Department offer and take the Marketing Health Report quiz for free. For less than the cost of a full-time hire, we can take your marketing from frustrating to lead generating with an entire marketing team. So check that out, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Marketing Myths and Magic, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can find us at exvadio.com/podcasts, as well as the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.